Good morning, everyone. Our, our reading today is from Psalm chapter 139, from verse 1 to 12. God's complete knowledge and care. 139, Lord, you may examine me and you know me. You know everything I do. From far away, you understand all my thoughts. You see me whether I am working or resting. You know all my actions. Even before I speak, you already know what I will say. You are all around me on every side. You protect me with all your power. Your knowledge of me is too deep. It is beyond my understanding. Where could I go to escape from you? Where could I get away from your presence? If I went up to heaven, you would be there. If I lay down in the world of dead, you would be there. If I flew away beyond the east or lived in the farthest place in the west, you would be there to lead me. You would be there to help me. I could ask the darkness to hide me or the light around me to turn into night. But even darkness is not dark for you, and the night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light are the same to you. We trust in you, Lord.
In your word we have hope.
Graham will now share a story that will help us how when we truly know Jesus, we are never alone and that we are loved the way that we were created.
Thank you. Thanks, Jinky. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read a story. So anyone who's interested in the story can come and sit in the first couple of rows. Oh, there we go. All right. No, you're right. There we go. So here we go. This is a book that I really like. I always say they're all my favourite, all the books they're always my favourite. This is my favourite for this week. The book is called Edward the Emu. Who knows this book, Edward the Emu? A lot of people, yes, it's a great little book. I love it. Edward the Emu. All right, and the pictures will be up on the screen. It's a book written by Sheena Knowles and illustrated by Rod Clement. And it is published by, I didn't know the answer to this off the top of my head, it's published by Angus and Robertson. All right. Has anyone ever seen an emu at the zoo or at a farm? Yeah, I know. What do you know about emus already? Yes. They what, sorry? They hurt you. Oh. Yes. There you go. All right. Well, not a good start. Do you want to sit at the back row? Is this kind of like? Oh, and yes.
The emu cannot go backward.
Yeah, that's true. They can't. Emus can only go forwards. That's an interesting little analogy, isn't it? Can't go backwards. Oh, yes, Peter.
They're very nosy.
They're very nosy. That's right. They're very forward, aren't they? They don't mind grabbing you. I've seen them grab somebody's lunch out of their hand. It's kind of like they don't hold back. They've got no fear. All right, they're fearless birds. All right, so here we go. Edward the Emu was sick of the zoo. There was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. And compared to the seals that lived right next door, well, being an emu was frankly a bore. So that night when the zookeeper went home to bed, Edward jumped from his pen and laughed as he said, "The seals are the best. Anybody can tell. So tomorrow I'll just be a seal as well." The next morning at 9, when they opened the zoo, the seals were swimming, and Edward was too. He dived in the water and basked in the sun, and he balanced a ball on his beak just for fun. Well, Edward was really enjoying the day till he overheard someone behind the fence say, "The seals are always amusing, it's true, but the lion's the best thing to see at the zoo." So that night when the zookeeper went home to bed, Edward jumped from the pool and he smiled as he said, "The lion's the best, anybody can tell. So tomorrow I'll just be a lion as well." The next morning at 9, when they opened the zoo, the lions were roaring and Edward was too. He snarled at the ladies and growled at the men. Life was certainly grand for a lion in his den. Well, Edward was having a wonderful day till a man in the crowd had the gumption to say, "The lion's a beast I shall always detest. The snakes are the things I like to see best." So that night when the zookeeper went home to bed, Edward crept from the cage and grinned as he said, "If the snakes are the best things, and that's what they say, then tomorrow I'll just be a snake for the day." The next morning at 9, when they opened the zoo, the snakes were all hissing, and Edward was too. He slipped round the rocks, it was magic to see. Then he curled himself casually up round a tree. Well, Edward was just warming up for the day when he overheard one of the visitors say, "The snakes are impressive, I know that it's true. But the emu's by far the best thing at the zoo." "The emu," gasped Edward. "My goodness, that's me. I'm the thing that the gentleman most likes to see. Not the lions, not the seals, the snakes and the rest. It's Edward the emu he likes to see best." So that night when the zookeeper went home to bed, Edward slipped from the cage and he laughed as he said, "If the emu's the best, then that's easy then. Tomorrow I'm Edward the emu again." Edward ran to the place where he used to reside. But oh, what a shock when he clambered inside. He found himself suddenly come face to face with the emu they'd brought in to take Edward's place. The emus considered each other a while. Then the new emu said with a shy little smile, "Hello, I'm Edwina. It's nice meeting you. You're the best thing I've seen since I came to the zoo." What a great book. What a great book. What do you think we learn from Edward? Oh, yes.
We learned that Edward thought that everyone else liked the other animals more than him, but at the end they actually liked him.
Yes, that's right. So that's one of the things we learn about Edward is that one of the things about the book is that Edward thinks that everyone else is different, everyone's better, and he might try and be like them. But then he discovered that it's him. It's an emu. Yeah, that's right. What else do you think we might learn from Edward the emu?
Just be yourself.
Just be yourself. Yeah. That's a good lesson. A lot of people try and spend a lot of their time trying to either be somebody else or looking at everybody else and wishing they were like them. Yes.
Maybe they stop copying them because you might not know what will happen.
That's true. That's true too. So just like don't spend your life trying to copy everybody else just because they look a bit better or a bit different. Yes.
Don't try to be something you're not.
Try and be something you're not. They're all great little things to pick out of the book. When we there was a reading before the book as well, and sometimes it sounds a little bit like, I call that passage sometimes God the Stalker, because it feels a little bit like God's on your case. You don't get to run away from God, which is in a sense is a good thing. And one of the things when we put the Bible reading and the story together, hopefully what we're picking up is that all of us are loved. All of us. All of us are loved. All of us are lovable, just as we are. Now, sure, there's things about us that we don't necessarily all like. But one of the things we learnt from the readings today is in spite of who we are sometimes, or sometimes it's because of who we are, we're loved. We're loved by God who loves us wholly, deeply, intimately, fully. And we can try and run. We can try and deny it. We can try to be something else or somebody else. We can try a different way of being who we are than what we're made for. Like humans aren't made for hatred. We're not made for greed. We're not made to exclude others. We're not made for unforgiveness. When we lean into those kind of things, life kind of feels pretty horrible. They're not the kind of things we're made for, to be indifferent to each other. What we're made for is love. This morning we had a baptism. We baptised Georgia, which was really, really good. And although I probably enjoyed it more than she did. But there's this sense that baptism calls us into this sense of knowing who we are. That we find ourselves again when we choose the baptism way of life. When we choose this way of love and compassion, hope, generosity, gratitude. When we choose that kind of way of life, peace. When we choose that kind of way of living, when we join in that kind of way of life, and that's what we're baptised for, that's what we're made for, we have this greater sense, we have this more opportunity to know who we are and what we're on about. We don't need to try and be somebody else. But that's what we're formed for. Baptism has this sense of calling us to be who we're called to be. And it calls us into this sense of being people of love in the world around us. So my hope in tying together our book and our reading and our baptism this morning, my hope and my prayer for each and every one of you, for all of us together, is to remember who we are, what we're made for, what we're here for. And when we feel a bit like we want to wander off and go some other different way, the place where you're going to find yourself again is when you turn around and find your way back onto the pathway of love, which is shown to us in Jesus. We're going to sing a song.